6 months after my wife's funeral, I saw her today while she was out shopping. Her voice and hairstyle were identical, and the scar on her hand was still there. I followed her all the way home. What I discovered next left me frozen in place. I was standing in the produce section of a Kroger on a Tuesday afternoon, holding a bag of apples I didn't really want, when I heard her laugh. Not a similar laugh. Not someone who sounded like her. Her laugh. The one that always started low and climbed higher. The one that made her sound younger than she was. My hands went numb. The apples hit the floor. I turned slowly, the way you move when you're not sure your legs will hold you, and there she was. 20 feet away, holding a cantaloupe up to her nose, wearing jeans and a green sweater I'd never seen before. Her hair was shorter, maybe an inch above her shoulders, but it was the same color. The same way she tucked it behind her left ear when she concentrated. I should have called her name. I should have run toward her. I should have done something other than stand there like an idiot with my mouth half open and my heart trying to punch through my ribs. But I didn't. Because 6 months ago, I watched them lower her casket into the ground. I listened to the priest say words I didn't hear. I stood between my son and daughter while they cried and held my arms. I went home to an empty house and slept on the couch because I couldn't face the bedroom. And now she was here, smelling fruit like it was the most normal thing in the world. She set the cantaloupe down and moved toward the lettuce. I followed, keeping a display of cereal between us. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. She picked up a head of iceberg, examined it, put it back, reached for romaine instead, her left hand. The scar was there, 3 inches long, running from the base of her thumb toward her wrist. She'd gotten it when we were 26, cutting vegetables for a dinner party we were already late to. I'd driven her to the ER. She'd needed 8 stitches. That scar wasn't something you could fake. She moved through the store like someone who'd been there before. She knew where everything was. She didn't check a list. She just walked and selected and moved on, efficient and calm. I stayed 2 aisles over, watching through the gaps in the shelves, my pulse refusing to slow down. When she went to check out, I hung back near the magazine rack, pretending to read about celebrity divorces I didn't care about. She paid in cash, loaded her bags into a cart, walked out through the automatic doors into the parking lot. I followed her. The late October air was cold enough to sting, but I barely felt it. She loaded her groceries into the trunk of a silver Honda Accord I'd never seen before. Virginia plates. The car was clean, maybe 2 years old. She got into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled out of the lot. I ran to my truck. I'm a structural engineer. I've spent 30 years designing load-bearing systems, calculating stress points, planning for failure. I know how to think clearly under pressure. I know how to document problems and solve them methodically. But right then, I was just a man chasing a ghost in a grocery store parking lot, and I had no idea what I was doing. She drove south on Route 29, staying in the right lane, going exactly the speed limit. I kept 3 cars between us. My hands were shaking on the wheel. I tried to think through the possibilities. Mistaken identity. But the scar. The laugh. The way she moved. A twin. But she didn't have a twin. I'd known her for 28 years. I'd met her parents, her cousins, her entire family tree. A delusion. But I could see her car. I could see the license plate. I could smell the coffee I'd spilled on my passenger seat 2 days ago. She turned left onto a residential street I didn't recognize. Older houses, small yards, trees that looked like they'd been there longer than I'd been alive. She pulled into a driveway halfway down the block. A 1-story brick house with white shutters and a mailbox that leaned slightly to the left. I drove past slowly, just another car on a quiet street. I watched her in my rearview mirror. She got out, grabbed her groceries, and walked to the front door like she lived there. She unlocked it and went inside. I parked 2 houses down and sat there, staring at nothing, trying to remember how to breathe. The mailbox had our last name on it, Kendrick, but it was spelled wrong. Kendrick, 1 letter off. I sat there for 20 minutes, then 30. The sun was starting to set. The temperature was dropping. I should have gone home. I should have called someone. But I didn't move. At some point, lights came on inside. I could see her shadow moving past the windows. Putting groceries away, I guessed. Starting dinner. Living a life that didn't include me. A car pulled up behind me. A dark blue Lexus. I recognized it immediately. My son's car. Ethan got out, carrying a bag from Panera, and walked straight to the front door. He didn't knock. He used a key. The door opened. She appeared in the doorway, smiling. She hugged him. He went inside. I sat there in the dark, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, and tried not to scream. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. I drove to a gas station, filled the tank, bought coffee I didn't drink, and drove back to the street. Parked in a different spot. Watched the house. The lights stayed on until almost 11. Then Ethan came out, got in his car, and drove away. The house went dark a few minutes later. I sat there until 2 in the morning. Then I drove home, walked past the pile of unopened mail on the kitchen counter, and lay down on the couch with my clothes still on. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and tried to figure out what I'd just seen. Tried to make it make sense. But I couldn't. Because 6 months ago, Ethan had stood next to me at the funeral and cried so hard he couldn't speak. My daughter, Harper, had written the eulogy. They'd both helped me sort through her things, box up her clothes, cancel her credit cards. They'd been there. They'd been devastated. Unless they hadn't. I got up at dawn, made coffee, and started looking through the paperwork from the funeral. I'm not sure what I expected to find. Proof, maybe. Evidence that I wasn't crazy. I found the funeral home invoice first. Paid in full. Service, casket, burial plot, headstone. Everything itemized. Everything accounted for. It was a copy of one, printed on regular paper, not the official watermarked kind you get from the county. I'd never looked at it closely before. Why would I? The kids had handled the paperwork. I'd been too numb to care about details. I looked at it now. The signature at the bottom was illegible. The date looked right. But there was no file number, no stamp, no seal. I grabbed my laptop and logged into the county records database. I'd used it before for property research, boundary disputes, easement verifications. I knew how to navigate it. I tried variations, different spellings, partial matches, nothing. I sat back and stared at the screen. I called the funeral home. A woman answered, polite and professional. I gave her my name and asked about my wife's service. "Oh yes," she said. "I remember. I'm so sorry for your loss." "Can you tell me who made the arrangements?" A pause. "Let me check our records. One moment." I waited. My coffee had gone cold. "It looks like your son, Ethan Kendrick, handled most of the coordination. He was the primary contact. Who provided that?" Another pause, longer this time. "That would have come from the family. We don't issue those. We just need a copy for our files." "Do you still have that copy?" "I'd have to check with our records department. Can I call you back?" I gave her my number and hung up. Then I called Ethan. He answered on the third ring. "Hey, Dad. What's up?" His voice was normal, casual, the same voice he'd used his whole life when he was lying to me about where he'd been or what he'd done. "Just checking in," I said. "Wanted to see how you're doing." "I'm good. Busy, but good. You okay?" "I'm fine." "You sure? You sound off." "Just tired." "You sleeping?" "Not great." "You should talk to someone. A therapist, maybe. I know you don't like that stuff, but it might help." I almost laughed. "Yeah, maybe." "Listen, I've got a meeting in 5. Can I call you later?" "Sure." "Love you, Dad." "Love you, too." I hung up and sat there, staring at my phone. He'd sounded so normal, so concerned, so much like the son I thought I knew. I texted Harper next. Just a simple message, thinking about you. "How are you?" She replied almost immediately. "I'm okay. Work is crazy, but I'm managing." "How are you?" "I'm fine. Just missing your mom. Me too. Every day." I stared at her message for a long time. Then I set the phone down and went back to my laptop. I started building a timeline. I'm good at timelines. I've spent my career breaking complex projects into sequences, identifying dependencies, mapping out critical paths. April 26th. Funeral. April 27th through May. I barely remember. I know I didn't go to work. I know the kids checked on me a lot. I know I spent most of my time on the couch, not eating, not sleeping, not thinking. June. I went back to work, started functioning again, stopped taking the sleeping pills Harper had gotten for me, July through October. Normal life, more or less. Grief, but manageable. Therapy I didn't want, but went to anyway because Harper insisted. October 29th. I saw my wife buying groceries. I pulled up our joint bank account. Susan and I had kept everything combined. No secrets, no separate finances. It was one of the things I'd liked about us. The account was still active, but there had been no activity on her side since mid-April. Her debit card hadn't been used. Her checks hadn't been written. I checked the credit cards next, all closed. Then I checked the life insurance. There it was, a payout, $200,000. Deposited into our account on May 15th. I'd known about it at the time, vaguely, the way you know about things that don't seem to matter when your whole world has collapsed. I looked at the withdrawal history. Ethan had transferred $70,000 into his account on May 20th. Harper had transferred $50,000 on May 22nd. I'd told them to take it. I didn't want the money. I didn't want anything except my wife back. And now, apparently, she was back, just not with me. I closed the laptop and walked to the window. It was starting to rain. The street outside was empty. My neighbor's dog was barking at nothing. I'd designed bridges that collapsed slower than this lie. The next morning, I drove back to the house on Elmwood Street. I didn't have a plan. I just needed to see her again. Needed to confirm I hadn't imagined it. She came out around 9, dressed in yoga pants and a jacket, carrying a gym bag. She got into the Honda and drove away. I followed. She went to an LA Fitness 3 miles away. Parked. Went inside. I sat in my truck and waited. She came out an hour later. Hair damp, face flushed. She looked good. Healthy. Alive. She drove to a Starbucks. Went through the drive-thru, then headed back to the house. I followed her home and parked where I'd been the day before. Watched her go inside. An hour later, a silver Toyota Camry pulled into the driveway. Harper got out. My daughter. My careful, meticulous lawyer daughter who'd helped me sort through Susan's closet, who'd held my hand at the funeral, who'd called me every single day for 2 months to make sure I was eating. She walked to the front door, knocked twice, and went inside. I sat there, staring at the house, feeling something cold and sharp settle into my chest. They were all in on it. Every single one of them. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I'm not an impulsive man. I don't act without information. I don't move without a plan. So I watched. I documented. I built a case the way I'd build a structural analysis. Piece by piece. Connection by connection. Harper visited 3 more times that week. Always during the day. Always for an hour or 2. Ethan came by twice. Once with takeout. Once with a small suitcase he carried inside and didn't bring back out. I took photos, time-stamped them, noted every detail. On Friday, I followed Susan to a grocery store again. Different one this time. A Trader Joe's in a nicer part of town. She shopped quickly, efficiently, paid in cash again. When she got home, I parked down the street and waited. At 6:30, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Hey, Dad. Harper and I were thinking we'd come by tomorrow. Bring lunch. You free? I stared at the message. Felt my jaw tighten. Sounds good, I replied. What time? Noon? Perfect. See you then? I set the phone down and leaned back in my seat. Tomorrow, I'd have them both in one place. Tomorrow, I'd start asking questions. But tonight, I'd keep watching. Because the thing about lies is that they have structure. They have weight-bearing points. They have weak spots. And I knew how to find them. They showed up at noon exactly, carrying bags from Chipotle and wearing identical expressions of careful concern. Harper hugged me first, holding on a beat too long. Ethan clapped my shoulder and smiled, but his eyes were doing that thing they'd done since he was 16, checking, measuring, calculating. You look good, Dad, Harper said, setting the bags on the kitchen counter. Better than last week. I hadn't seen her last week. She was lying already. Thanks, I said. Coffee? I'll make it, Ethan said, moving toward the machine before I could respond. He'd always done that, taken over, made himself useful, made it hard to say no. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd eaten breakfast together for 20 years and unwrapped burritos I had no intention of eating. They talked about work, about the weather, about Harper's new case at the firm. Normal conversation, easy rhythm, nothing that would suggest they'd spent the last 6 months lying to my face. You should get out more, Harper said, spooning salsa onto her bowl. See people, do things. You can't just sit here alone all day. I go out, I said. To the grocery store doesn't count. I went to Home Depot yesterday. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You know what I mean. I'm doing fine. Dad. Ethan leaned forward, his expression shifting into something more serious. We're worried about you. It's been 6 months. We know it's hard. We know Mom was everything to you, but you've got to start living again. I set down my burrito, looked at him, really looked at him. He was 28 years old, 6'2", same build as me. He'd gotten his mother's eyes and my stubborn streak. He worked in commercial real estate, made decent money, drove a car he couldn't quite afford. He'd always been ambitious, always wanted more than what he had. I'm living, I said. Barely. Harper reached across the table and touched my hand. When's the last time you saw your friends? When's the last time you did anything except go to work and come home? I'm not ready. It's been 6 months. Is there a schedule I'm supposed to follow? Dad, come on. Ethan's voice had an edge now. We're not trying to push you. We're just trying to help. I pulled my hand back from Harper's. I appreciate that. Do you? Harper asked. Because every time we try to talk to you about this, you shut down. I'm not shutting down. I'm just not ready to move on. No one's asking you to move on, Ethan said. We're asking you to move forward. There's a difference. I nodded slowly. You're right. I'm sorry. I know you're just trying to help. They both relaxed. Harper smiled. Ethan went back to his burrito. Actually, I said, I've been thinking about what to do with some of Mom's things. The stuff we boxed up. Maybe it's time to donate it. Harper's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Really? Yeah. Keeping it isn't helping anyone. She'd want someone else to use it. That's great, Dad. Ethan's voice was warm, encouraging. That's really healthy. I was thinking about going through her office this weekend. The filing cabinets, the desk. There's probably stuff in there I should handle. Paperwork, financial stuff. We took care of most of that, Harper said quickly. Remember? We went through everything after the funeral. I know, but I should probably double-check. Make sure nothing got missed. There's nothing to double-check, Ethan said. We were thorough. I'm sure you were, but you know how I am. I like to verify things myself. They exchanged a look, fast. Barely a second, but I caught it. Why don't we help you? Harper said. We can come over tomorrow, go through it together. That's okay. I can handle it. Dad. Ethan's tone had shifted again. Harder. We really don't think that's a good idea. Going through Mom's stuff alone, digging up old paperwork, it's just going to make things worse. I'll be fine. You say that, but what? He hesitated. But you're not fine. We can see that. You're depressed, you're isolated, and now you want to spend your weekend going through filing cabinets full of memories? That's not healthy. I kept my voice level. I appreciate your concern, but I'm a grown man. I can go through my own wife's office if I want to. Of course you can, Harper said, her lawyer voice kicking in. Smooth, reasonable. We're not saying you can't. We're just saying we should be there with you, for support. I don't need support. Everyone needs support. Harper. I looked at her. I love you. I love your brother. But I need to do this alone. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it, glanced at Ethan. He gave a tiny shake of his head. Okay, she said finally. If that's what you want. It is. We finished lunch. They stayed another hour, making small talk that felt like sandpaper. When they finally left, I stood at the window and watched Ethan's Lexus pull out of the driveway. Then I watched it turn left instead of right. Left didn't take him home. Left took him toward Elmwood Street. I grabbed my keys and followed. He drove straight to the brick house with the crooked mailbox, parked in the driveway. Went inside without knocking. I parked 3 houses down and waited. He stayed for 45 minutes. When he came out, Harper was with him. They stood in the driveway talking. Harper looked upset. Ethan had his hands in his pockets, his shoulders tight. Then Susan came to the door. She was wearing the same green sweater from the grocery store. Her hair was pulled back. She looked tired. They talked for another 5 minutes. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could read the body language. Stress, tension, disagreement. Finally, Ethan and Harper got in their cars and drove away. Susan went back inside. I sat there until it got dark. Then I went home and started going through the filing cabinets in Susan's office. I found the insurance policy first. Term life, $200,000, purchased 8 years ago. Beneficiary, Douglas Kendrick. That was me. But there was a rider attached, a modification from 3 years ago. It stipulated that in the event of my incapacitation or incompetence, the benefit would pass to our children, jointly. I'd never seen that rider before, never signed it. I kept looking. There were bank statements I didn't recognize, an account at a credit union I'd never heard of. Opened 4 years ago, Susan's name only. $18,000, gone. I found mortgage paperwork next, for a house on Elmwood Street, purchased 2 years ago. Listed owner, Susan Kendrick. 1 letter off. Deliberate misspelling. I sat back in her chair and tried to breathe. 2 years. She'd been planning this for at least 2 years. I kept going through the files, found more documents. A new driver's license application, a social security card replacement request, utility bills under the modified name. She'd built a whole new identity while living with me, while sleeping next to me every night, while telling me she loved me. I found a folder labeled Medical near the back of the bottom drawer. Opened it. Inside were invoices from a cardiologist, appointments spanning 6 months leading up to April, Notes about chest pain, irregular heartbeat, stress tests. She'd been building a medical history. At the bottom of the folder was a handwritten note. Susan's handwriting, just 2 lines. Tell him gently, make sure he understands it's not his fault. I stared at that note for a long time. Then I put everything back exactly where I'd found it, closed the filing cabinet, and walked out of the office. In the kitchen, I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon I didn't want and sat at the table. They'd planned my grief like a calendar event. The next morning, I called in sick to work, first time in 3 years. Then I drove to the county courthouse and spent 4 hours in the records department. I pulled every document I could find related to Susan Kendrick, Elmwood Street property, and any financial instruments tied to my family. I found the deed transfer for the house. Susan had purchased it cash, no mortgage. The money had come from the credit union account. I found tax records. She'd been paying property taxes on it for 2 years. I found utility connections, electric, water, gas, all under her modified name. She'd been living a double life, methodically, carefully, for years. But why? That was the question that kept circling in my head. Why go to all this trouble? Why not just divorce me if you wanted out? Unless it wasn't about wanting out. I drove to the house on Elmwood Street, parked across the street, watched. Susan came out around 10, got in her car, drove away. I waited 5 minutes, then walked up to the house. The front door was locked. I walked around back. The yard was small, neat, unremarkable. The back door was locked too, but the bathroom window was cracked open about 2 inches. I'm 6 feet tall and not as flexible as I used to be, but I've spent 30 years climbing around construction sites. I've squeezed through tighter spaces. I pushed the window open, pulled myself up, and climbed through. I landed in a small bathroom with blue tile and a shower curtain that smelled like mildew. Stood there for a minute, breathing hard, listening. The house was quiet. I walked out into a hallway, looked around. It was smaller than our house, simpler. The furniture looked like it came from IKEA. The walls were bare except for a few generic prints. It looked like a place someone was occupying, not living in. I went into the kitchen, checked the fridge, normal food, milk, eggs, vegetables, leftovers, and Tupperware. I opened the cabinets. Dishes, glasses, nothing unusual. Then I found the drawer next to the stove, the junk drawer every kitchen has. Inside were receipts, dozens of them, all from the last 6 months. Groceries, gas, restaurants. And underneath those, a checkbook. I opened it. The checks were made out to Susan Kendrick. The account was the same credit union one I'd found in the filing cabinet. But this one wasn't empty. The current balance was $93,000. I took photos of everything with my phone, the checks, the receipts, the balance. Then I heard a car door slam outside. I shoved everything back in the drawer and moved fast. Down the hallway, into the bathroom, out the window. I dropped into the backyard, pulled the window shut, and walked quickly to the street. A gray Nissan was parked in the driveway. I didn't recognize it. I got in my truck and drove away before anyone could see me. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and a notepad, building a timeline I could understand. 2 years ago, Susan starts planning. Buys house, opens new accounts, starts using modified name. 1 year ago, she increases the frequency. More appointments, more documentation, more preparation. 6 months ago, the execution, fake medical crisis, fake funeral, real money transfer. Present day, she's living in the new house. Ethan and Harper visit regularly. Everyone's in on it except me. But why? I pulled up our financial records, looked at everything with fresh eyes. Our house was paid off, worth about $400,000. We had retirement accounts. Mine had $600,000. Hers had $200,000. We had savings. Another $100,000, give or take. Total, roughly $1,300,000. And I was the sole owner of all of it, which meant she couldn't claim any of it, unless I died, or unless I was declared incompetent. I sat back and felt my stomach drop. The insurance money had just been the opening move. The real target was everything else, and the only way they could get it was if I wasn't around to stop them. I spent the morning putting my affairs in order. I paid bills, closed accounts, transferred funds. I pulled together every document I'd need, organized them into folders, labeled everything clearly. Then I drove to Jim Holloway's office. He was waiting for me with 2 documents already printed, the revocation of power of attorney and a new will. I need you to understand what you're doing here, he said. If you revoke the POA and something happens to you, your children won't be able to make decisions on your behalf. You'll need to designate someone else or leave it blank. Leave it blank. That means a court would appoint a guardian. It could be your kids anyway. I'll take that risk. He sighed. And the will. You're disinheriting your children completely. Everything goes to the American Heart Association. Is that really what you want? That's what I want. Doug, I've known you for 15 years. This isn't like you. You don't know me as well as you think. He studied me for a long moment. Then he slid the papers across the desk. Sign here, and here, and here. I signed. He witnessed, made copies, put everything in an envelope and handed it to me. This is effective immediately, he said. Your old documents are void. Good. Doug, whatever's going on, please talk to someone. A counselor, a friend, someone. Thanks for your help, Jim. I left before he could say anything else. From there, I drove to the bank, asked to speak with the manager, spent an hour closing joint accounts, moving funds into a new account with only my name on it. The manager asked if I was sure. I said I was. Then I went to the DMV and applied for a replacement driver's license, told them I'd lost mine. They took a new photo, printed a temporary license, said the permanent one would arrive in 2 weeks. When I got home, there were 3 voicemails from Harper and 2 from Ethan. I deleted them without listening. Then I called Dr. Patel's office. This is Doug Kendrick. I need to schedule an appointment with Dr. Patel. Of course, Mr. Kendrick. We've been trying to reach you. How about tomorrow at 10? That works. I understand. I hung up, asked if my results were ready. Let me check, the nurse said. Yes, we have them. Everything looks normal. Your cholesterol is a little high, but nothing concerning. Nothing else? Nope. You're healthy. Can you send me a copy of those results? Sure. What's your email? I gave it to her and hung up. 2 different results. One showed serious problems. One showed nothing wrong. Only one of them was real. That night, I sat in my truck outside the house on Elmwood Street and watched the lights go on and off. Susan was home, alone, as far as I could tell. Around 9, a car pulled up. Robert Faraday. He went inside, stayed for an hour, left carrying another manila envelope. I followed him to the same bank. He went inside, used the ATM in the vestibule, then drove home. I sat outside his house for a while, thinking. Then I drove to the police station. I asked to speak with a detective. They sent out a woman in her mid-40s, tired eyes, coffee in one hand. I'm Detective Brennan, she said. What can I do for you? I need to report fraud. What kind of fraud? Financial, maybe identity theft. I'm not sure exactly. She led me to a small room with a table and 2 chairs, pulled out a notepad. Start from the beginning. I told her about Susan, about the fake funeral, about the house on Elmwood Street, about Robert Faraday and the bank accounts and the modified name. She listened without interrupting, taking notes. When I finished, she set down her pen. Okay, she said, let me make sure I understand. Your wife, who you believed was deceased, is actually alive and living under a slightly different name in a house you didn't know she owned. Yes? And you believe your children are involved in some kind of conspiracy to defraud you? Yes. Have you talked to your wife about this? No. Have you talked to your children? Not directly. Not about this. Why not? Because I don't know what they're planning yet. I need to understand the full scope before I confront them. She studied me. Mr. Kendrick, have you been under a lot of stress lately? Of course I have. Are you currently seeing a therapist? What does that have to do with anything? I'm just trying to get a complete picture. No, I'm not seeing a therapist. She made a note. Okay, here's the situation. What you're describing might be fraud. It might also be a misunderstanding, but without clear evidence of a crime, there's not much we can do. I have evidence. You have photos of your wife going into a house she owns. That's not a crime. You have records of financial transactions that might look suspicious, but they might also be legitimate. Has any money actually been stolen from you? Not yet. Has anyone forged your signature, used your identity without permission, accessed your accounts illegally? No. Then I'm not sure what you want me to investigate. I want you to look into Robert Faraday. I want you to check his connection to my family. I want you to... Mr. Kendrick. Her voice was gentle but firm. I hear you. I do. But I can't open an investigation based on suspicion. I need concrete evidence of a crime. Right now, what you're describing sounds like a family dispute. If you're concerned about your wife's well-being, you should talk to her. If you're concerned about your finances, you should talk to a lawyer. But from a criminal standpoint, I don't have enough to act on. I stood up. So you're not going to do anything. I'm going to file a report. If anything else happens, if you get more evidence, come back and we'll reassess. But right now, my hands are tied. I left the station and sat in my truck, staring at nothing. She thought I was paranoid. I could see it in her eyes. She'd probably write me off as a grieving widower who couldn't let go. Maybe she'd even call Harper and tell her to check on me. I drove home, poured myself bourbon I actually drank this time, sat in the dark and thought about what to do next. The police weren't going to help. The lawyers would tie everything up in bureaucracy. The doctors were already being used against me. I was on my own, so I'd have to handle this myself. The next morning, I went to my appointment with Dr. Patel. She was waiting for me in her office, looking concerned. "Doug," she said, "thank you for coming in. I've been worried about you." "I'm fine. I had a second test done. At a different lab. Everything came back normal." She blinked. "You did what?" "The results were completely different from yours." "Doug, why would you do that?" "Because I don't trust you." She sat back. "That's a serious accusation." "It's a serious situation. I think we need to talk about what's going on with you, not just physically, but mentally. Your daughter mentioned you've been acting unusual lately, missing appointments, expressing paranoid thoughts. I'm not paranoid." "Doug, you just told me you don't trust me. We've been working together for 15 years. That suggests something's changed." "She's alive. I've seen her." "Doug." Her voice was careful now, professional. "Grief can cause hallucinations. It's not uncommon, especially in cases of traumatic loss. I'm not hallucinating. She's living in a house on Elmwood Street. I've followed her. I've watched her. She's alive." Dr. Patel picked up her phone. "I'm going to call someone who can help you." "Put the phone down." "Doug, you need to see a psychiatrist. This is serious." "I'm leaving." I stood up. She moved to block the door. "I can't let you leave like this. I'm concerned for your safety." "You can't keep me here." "If I believe you're a danger to yourself or others, I can have you evaluated involuntarily." I looked at her. "Try it." We stood there for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. "Please," she said, "let me help you." I walked out without answering. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck and shook. Not from fear, from anger. They'd gotten to her. I didn't know how, but they had. She was part of it now, another piece in their plan. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. I forwarded them to myself, printed to PDF, saved copies to 3 different cloud services. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to a hotel 30 miles outside the city and paid cash for a room. Turned off my phone, sat on the bed, and stared at the wall. Susan's words kept circling in my head. "You were never supposed to find out. Not I'm sorry, not I was wrong. Just the simple truth that their plan had been for me to live the rest of my life believing a lie. I'd thought I understood betrayal. I'd thought I knew what it felt like to be abandoned. I'd been wrong." I ordered pizza I didn't eat, drank water from the bathroom tap, lay on the bed with my shoes still on, and watched the ceiling fan spin in slow circles. Around midnight, I turned my phone back on. 53 messages. 41 from Harper, 12 from Ethan. I didn't read them, just powered it off again. At dawn, I checked out of the hotel and drove to a hardware store, bought zip ties, duct tape, a heavy-duty padlock, and a rechargeable drill with a full set of bits. The cashier didn't even blink. Then I drove to a storage facility on the other side of town, different from the one where I'd stored my evidence. I rented a climate-controlled unit, paid for 3 months upfront in cash, and drove away. Next stop, an electronics store. I bought 4 prepaid phones and a digital voice recorder small enough to fit in my shirt pocket. By 10 a.m., I was parked outside Robert Faraday's house in the suburbs. He left around 11, dressed in a suit, driving his white Explorer. I followed him to the bank, then to a coffee shop, then to an office building downtown. He parked in the garage and went inside. I waited 15 minutes, then walked into the building's lobby. The directory listed Wells Fargo Private Banking on the 4th floor. I took the elevator up. The office was small, tasteful, exactly what you'd expect from a bank that dealt with wealthy clients. A receptionist sat behind a desk with a polite smile. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Robert Faraday." "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but it's urgent. Tell him it's about the Kendrick account." She picked up the phone. "Just a moment." I waited. 30 seconds later, Robert Faraday came out of an office down the hall. He looked confused. "I'm sorry," he said. "I don't think we've met." "We haven't, but you've been meeting with my wife." His expression shifted. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding. Susan Kendrick, Elmwood Street. You've been helping her move money around." His face went carefully blank. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I'm going to have to insist we talk. I can't discuss client information." "Even when that client is committing fraud?" "I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. You've been helping my wife hide assets. You've been setting up accounts, creating paper trails, making it look legitimate, but it's not legitimate, is it? It's theft. Sir? His voice was firm now. You need to leave, or I'll call security. Call them. I'll wait. He stared at me for a moment. Then he turned to the receptionist. Call building security. She picked up the phone. I didn't move, just stood there, watching Robert Faraday try to look calm while his jaw clenched tighter and tighter. Security arrived 3 minutes later. 2 men in uniform, both polite but firm. "No, sir," one of them said. "We need you to leave the premises." "I'm leaving, but you should know that man is helping someone commit fraud. You might want to check into that." They escorted me out without comment. I got in my truck and sat there, watching the building entrance. Robert Faraday came out 10 minutes later. He was on his phone, talking fast, gesturing. Pissed off. I took photos of him, time-stamped them, sent them to myself at 3 different email addresses. Then I followed him. He drove straight to Elmwood Street, parked in Susan's driveway, went inside without knocking. I parked down the block and waited. 40 minutes later, Ethan's Lexus pulled up, then Harper's Camry. They all went inside. Emergency family meeting. I walked up to the house, staying low along the side fence, found a window with a crack in the blinds, pressed the digital recorder against the glass and hit record. Their voices were muffled but audible. Completely out of control. That was Harper. He came to my office. Robert Faraday. He knows about the accounts. How? Ethan. We were so careful. He followed me. Susan's voice, quiet. He's been following all of us. Then we move up the timeline. Harper again. We file for guardianship tomorrow. On what grounds? Robert. We have Dr. Patel's documentation, the psychiatric referral, the missed appointments, his paranoid behavior. That's enough for a temporary order. And if he fights it? He'll fight it, Ethan said. But he'll lose. We have everything we need. Medical records, financial concerns, documented instability. The court will side with us. How long until we have full control? Susan asked. 2 weeks, Harper said. Maybe 3. Once we have guardianship, we can manage all his assets. Transfer them, liquidate them, whatever we need. And the house? We sell it. Dad doesn't need that much space. We'll move him into an assisted living facility. Something nice, but affordable. He'll never agree to that, Susan said. He won't have a choice. Harper's voice was cold. Once the court declares him incompetent, his opinion doesn't matter. Silence. I don't like this, Susan said quietly. You don't have to like it, Ethan said. You just have to let it happen. He's still your father. He stopped being our father when he stopped seeing us as human beings. Harper's voice was sharp. He spent our whole lives caring more about his structures and his projects than he did about us. This is just balancing the scales. Harper, don't. I'm done pretending to feel guilty about this. He had 30 years to be a good father. He failed. Now he gets to live with the consequences. I stopped the recording and walked back to my truck. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from something colder. I sat there for 10 minutes, breathing slowly, letting the anger settle into something I could use. They'd set a timeline, 2 to 3 weeks. I had less than that. I needed to move now. I drove to Jim Holloway's office, walked in without an appointment. His secretary said he was with a client, but I didn't care. I opened his door. He was sitting across from an elderly couple, discussing estate planning. They all looked up, startled. Doug, Jim said. I'm in the middle of... I need 5 minutes. I'm with clients. It's an emergency. He studied my face. Whatever he saw there made him stand up. Excuse me, he told the couple. I'll be right back. He ushered me into the hallway and closed the door. What's going on? My children are filing for guardianship. What? Tomorrow, maybe today. They're going to claim I'm incompetent and try to take control of my assets. Doug, that's a serious legal process. They'd need evidence. They have evidence. Falsified medical records, psychiatric referrals, documented paranoid behavior. They've been building a case for months. Jim's expression shifted. This is really happening? Yes. Okay. We need to file a preemptive motion. Establish your competency before they can move forward. But that'll take time. And if they file first, they will. Then we fight it. I'll need you to get evaluated by an independent psychiatrist, someone who can testify that you're of sound mind. Can you do that today? I can try. Do it, and get me copies of everything. Medical records, financial documents, anything that might help your case. I have copies. Bring them to me, today. I'll start drafting motions, but Doug, I need to be honest with you. If they have documentation from your doctor, if they can show you've been acting erratically, it's going to be an uphill battle. I know. Are you sure about this? About your wife, your kids, all of it? I pulled out my phone, played him the recording I'd just made. His face went pale. Jesus Christ, he said quietly. Can you use that? I don't know. It might not be admissible, but it's leverage. Let me talk to a colleague who specializes in guardianship cases. We'll figure this out. How long do I have? If they file today, you'll get notice. You'll have a hearing within 72 hours. But they could request an emergency order, which would freeze your assets immediately. Can they do that? If they convince a judge you're in immediate danger to yourself or others, yes. I felt something cold settle in my chest again. Then I need to move my money. Doug, if you start transferring large sums right now, it's going to look like exactly what they're claiming, that you're unstable and making irrational financial decisions. I don't care how it looks. You should, because a judge will. I stood there, trapped between two impossible choices. Do what you can, I said finally. I'll get you the evidence. I left before he could respond. Outside, I sat in my truck and pulled up my bank accounts on my phone. Everything was still there. Savings, checking, retirement, untouched. For now. I transferred $50,000 into the new account I'd opened. Not enough to raise alarms, but enough to give me operating capital. Then I drove to the courthouse. I asked the clerk if any guardianship petitions had been filed under my name. She checked the system. Nothing yet, she said. Can you let me know if something gets filed? We don't typically do that, but you can check the public records online. They update daily. I thanked her and left. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck and tried to think. If they hadn't filed yet, I still had time. Maybe hours, maybe a day. But not much more than that. I needed to force their hand, make them move before they were ready, make them reveal themselves publicly. I needed to burn it all down. I drove home, packed a bag with clothes, toiletries, copies of documents, loaded it in my truck. Then I walked through the house I'd lived in for 20 years, the kitchen where we'd had breakfast every morning, the living room where we'd watched movies, the bedroom where I'd slept next to a woman who'd been planning to erase me. I felt nothing. I left the lights on, the doors unlocked, and drove away. I went back to Elmwood Street one last time. Susan's car was in the driveway. Lights were on inside. I could see her shadow moving past the windows. I sat there for a long time, watching. Then I took out one of the prepaid phones and sent a text to Ethan's number. I know what you're planning. I have evidence. If you file that petition, I'll make sure everyone knows the truth. I sent the same message to Harper. Then I waited. My phone started ringing 30 seconds later. Ethan. I didn't answer. Another call. Harper. I let it go to voicemail. A text came through from Ethan. Dad, we need to talk. This isn't what you think, I replied. You have 24 hours to drop this. After that, I go public. Harper called again. I turned off the phone. Then I drove to the storage unit I'd rented and started preparing. The storage unit was 10 by 10, empty except for the supplies I'd bought. I laid everything out on the concrete floor like I was planning a construction project. In a way, I was, except instead of building something, I was going to tear something down. I spent 3 hours making phone calls from the prepaid phones. First, I called every member of my extended family, cousins I hadn't talked to in years, Susan's sister in Montana, my brother in Arizona. I told them all the same thing. Susan was alive. The funeral had been fake. Our children were trying to steal from me. Oh, some of them believed me. Some thought I'd lost my mind. It didn't matter. I just needed the information out there. I needed witnesses to what I was saying, people who could testify later that I'd been warning them. Next, I called everyone at my office, left voicemails when they didn't answer, told them I'd be out for a few days handling a family emergency, asked them to keep copies of all my project files just in case. Then I called the funeral home. This is Doug Kendrick. You handled my wife's service 6 months ago. Oh yes, Mr. Kendrick. How can I help you? I need to know something. Was there actually a body in that casket? Silence. I'm sorry. What? The casket you buried. Was there a body inside? Mr. Kendrick, I don't... Simple question. Yes or no? I'd have to check our records. You do that, because I have reason to believe you participated in a fraudulent burial. Sir, I can assure you, I'll be contacting a lawyer, so expect to hear from them. I hung up. I made a dozen more calls. The insurance company that had paid out the life insurance, the cemetery where the plot was, the priest who'd performed the service. I left the same message with all of them. You were part of a fraud, and I have evidence. By the time I was done, my voice was raw, and my hands were shaking. I sat on the floor of the storage unit and ate a protein bar that tasted like cardboard, drank water from a bottle I'd bought at a gas station, tried to think through the next steps. Harper would have gotten my text by now. She'd be panicking, calling Ethan, calling Robert Faraday, trying to figure out what to do. They'd probably move up their timeline, file the guardianship petition today instead of tomorrow. Good. Let them rush. Let them make mistakes. I pulled out my laptop and logged into the county court records, refreshed the page every few minutes, checking for new filings. Nothing yet. At 6 p.m., my real phone started ringing. I turned it back on to monitor their moves. Harper's name showed on the screen. I let it ring. She called 3 more times. Then Ethan tried. Then a number I didn't recognize. Finally, a voicemail from Harper. Dad, please pick up. We need to talk about this. You're not thinking clearly. The things you're saying, the calls you're making, they're only making things worse. Please, just talk to us. Let us help you. I deleted it. Another voicemail, this time from Ethan. Dad, I don't know what you think you have, but whatever it is, it's not what you think. You're sick. You need help. We're trying to help you. Please stop fighting us. I deleted that one too. At 7 p.m., I checked the court records again. There it was, a new filing. Petition for emergency guardianship and conservatorship. Petitioners, Ethan Kendrick and Harper Kendrick. Respondent, Douglas Kendrick. They'd filed. I read through the petition. It was 8 pages long, filled with legal language I mostly understood from my work with contracts. They cited Dr. Patel's concerns, the missed appointments, the refusal of psychiatric evaluation. They included a letter from Dr. Patel stating that I was at risk of harming myself or others. They claimed I'd been making erratic financial decisions, closing accounts without explanation, threatening family members, exhibiting signs of mental deterioration. They attached copies of text messages I'd sent, voicemails I'd left, statements from people I'd called, claiming I'd made wild accusations about fraud and conspiracy. It was a solid case. Well constructed. Exactly what you'd expect from a lawyer like Harper. They'd requested an emergency hearing. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., I had less than 15 hours. I called Jim Holloway. He answered on the first ring. I saw the filing, he said before I could speak. I'm drafting a response now. But Doug, I'm going to be honest with you. This is bad. They have documentation from your doctor. They have witnesses. They have a pattern of behavior that looks exactly like what they're claiming. I have evidence that proves they're lying. Evidence that might not be admissible. And even if it is, we need time to authenticate it, to build a case around it. We don't have that time. So what do I do? Show up tomorrow. Be calm, rational, respectful. Demonstrate that you're competent. Let me handle the legal arguments. But Doug, you need to understand, even if we win tomorrow, this isn't over. They can keep filing, keep trying. And every time you do something that looks unstable, you give them more ammunition. What if I don't show up? Then you lose by default. They get emergency guardianship, and you lose all control over your assets and your life. I sat there, holding the phone, staring at the concrete floor. I'll be there, I said finally. Good. Meet me at the courthouse at 8:30. We'll go over our strategy. I hung up. I spent the next hour organizing my evidence. I printed everything I'd collected, photos of Susan alive, bank records showing the transfers, the recording of their conversation, timelines, documentation, everything that proved what they'd done. I put it all in a folder and labeled it clearly. Then I sat back and thought about tomorrow. I could go to court, I could present my evidence, I could fight them legally, rationally, the way I'd fought every problem in my life, or I could do something else. I pulled out the prepaid phone and sent a text to a number I'd found earlier, a reporter at the local newspaper who covered legal stories. The response came back 3 minutes later. Who is this? Someone who wants the truth out there. Meet me tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., at the Starbucks on Commonwealth. I'll be there. I turned off the phone. Then I laid down on the floor of the storage unit, using my jacket as a pillow, and tried to sleep. I didn't. I stared at the ceiling all night, thinking about the last 30 years. The career I'd built, the family I'd raised, the life I'd believed was real. All of it had been a structure built on sand. And now it was collapsing. At 6 a.m., I got up, brushed my teeth in the gas station bathroom across the street, changed into clean clothes, and drove to the Starbucks. The reporter was already there. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 30, with short dark hair and sharp eyes. She was drinking coffee and typing on her laptop. I sat down across from her. "You the one who texted me?" she asked. "Yeah." "What's your name?" "Doug Kendrick." She pulled up something on her laptop. "You're the subject of a guardianship petition filed yesterday, emergency hearing today." "That's right." "So you want me to write about that?" "I want you to write about why they're filing it." I opened the folder and slid it across the table. She looked through it slowly. Photos of Susan, bank records, the modified name, the house on Elmwood Street, the recording transcript I'd typed up. When she finished, she looked up at me. "If this is real, it's one hell of a story." "It's real." "Can you prove it?" "Everything you need is in that folder." "I'll need to verify it. That'll take time." "How much time?" "A few days, maybe a week. I need to confirm the property records, contact the people involved, get statements. I don't have a week." "Then I can't help you. I'm not going to print a story based on unverified documents from someone who's about to be declared incompetent." I stood up. "Thanks for nothing." "Wait." She closed the folder. "Let me make some calls. If I can verify even part of this by this afternoon, I'll write it. But I can't promise anything. That's all I'm asking." I left the folder with her and walked out. I had 2 hours until I had to be at the courthouse. I drove to Elmwood Street one more time. Susan's car was gone. The house looked empty. I parked in the driveway, walked to the front door, and knocked. No answer. I walked around back. The bathroom window was still unlocked. I climbed through again. The house was quiet. I walked through the room slowly, looking for anything I might have missed before. In the bedroom, I found a calendar hanging on the wall. It had dates marked. Doctor's appointments, meetings with Robert Faraday, visits from Ethan and Harper. I took photos of every page. In the kitchen, I found a laptop on the counter. I opened it. It wasn't password protected. I pulled up the email application. Dozens of messages between Susan, Ethan, Harper, and Robert Faraday. Plans, strategies, discussions about how to handle me. I forwarded all of them to my own email address. Then I took photos of the screen with my phone. I was in the middle of going through her bank records when I heard a car door slam outside. I closed the laptop and moved fast. Back down the hallway, into the bathroom, out the window. I dropped into the backyard and walked quickly to my truck. Susan's car was pulling into the driveway. She hadn't seen me yet. I got in my truck and drove away. At 8:30, I met Jim Holloway outside the courthouse. He looked tired. "Ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be." We walked inside together. The courtroom was small, wood-paneled, smelling like old books and floor polish. Ethan and Harper were already there, sitting with their lawyer. A woman in her 50s, expensive suit, confident posture. They looked at me when I walked in. Harper's face was unreadable. Ethan looked angry. Susan wasn't there. The judge came in a few minutes later. Woman in her 60s, gray hair, stern expression. She sat down, reviewed the papers in front of her, then looked up. "This is a petition for emergency guardianship and conservatorship," she said. "Petitioners are claiming the respondent is suffering from mental health issues that make him unable to manage his own affairs. Respondent is here with counsel. Are both parties ready?" "Yes, Your Honor." Harper's lawyer stood. "We're prepared to present evidence of Mr. Kendrick's declining mental state and the urgent need for intervention." "Your Honor," Jim said, standing, "we're prepared to demonstrate that Mr. Kendrick is fully competent and that this petition is a malicious attempt to seize his assets." The judge looked at me. "Mr. Kendrick, do you understand what's happening here?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Do you understand that your children are seeking to have you declared incompetent?" "I understand." "And do you believe you're competent to manage your own affairs?" "I do." She nodded. "All right, let's hear the evidence." Harper's lawyer went first. She called Dr. Patel to the stand. Dr. Patel testified about my missed appointments, my refusal to accept psychiatric evaluation, my paranoid statements about not trusting her. She said I was exhibiting clear signs of depression-related psychosis. Jim cross-examined her. "Dr. Patel, did you ever confirm that Mr. "I ordered the tests myself." "But did you personally oversee the testing? Did you verify the samples were correctly labeled and processed?" "That's not typically part of my role. The lab handles that." "So it's possible there was an error." "Highly unlikely." "But possible." "Technically, yes." "And when Mr. Kendrick told you he'd gotten a second opinion that contradicted your results, did you investigate that?" "I suggested he see a psychiatrist." "That's not what I asked. Did you investigate the possibility that your test results were incorrect?" "No." "Why not?" "Because his response was consistent with paranoid delusions." Jim sat down. Harper's lawyer called Ethan next. Ethan testified about my behavior over the last few months. The isolation, the refusal to accept help, the threatening phone calls I'd made, the wild accusations about Susan being alive. Your Honor, he said, his voice breaking. My father is sick. He's lost touch with reality. We're not trying to hurt him. We're trying to save him before he hurts himself. Jim didn't cross-examine him. Then Harper's lawyer called Harper. Harper testified about the same things. She was calmer than Ethan, more measured. She talked about how much they loved me, how worried they were, how they'd tried everything to help me and nothing had worked. When she finished, Jim stood. Ms. Kendrick, you're a lawyer, correct? Yes. And you understand how guardianship works. I do. You understand that if this petition is granted, you and your brother would have full control over your father's assets. That's not why we're doing this. I didn't ask why you're doing it. I asked if you understand the legal consequences. Yes, I understand. And you're aware that your father has made recent changes to his will, disinheriting both you and your brother. Her face went carefully blank. I wasn't aware of that, no. So you're seeking control over assets you won't inherit anyway. We're seeking to protect our father, even though he's explicitly stated he doesn't want your help. He's not capable of making that decision. According to you. According to his doctor. Jim sat down. The judge looked at me. Mr. Kendrick, would you like to testify? I stood up. Yes, Your Honor. I walked to the witness stand, took the oath, sat down. Jim approached. Mr. Kendrick, are you suffering from any mental health issues that would prevent you from managing your own affairs? No. Have you been acting irrationally? No. Have you made threatening phone calls to family members? I've made phone calls, but they weren't threats. They were warnings. Warnings about what? About a fraud being committed against me. Can you explain that fraud to the court? I looked at the judge, then at Ethan and Harper, then back at Jim. They're trying to steal my assets and have me declared incompetent so I can't stop them. The courtroom went silent. Harper's lawyer stood. Your Honor, this is exactly what we're talking about. Mr. Kendrick is experiencing delusions. I have evidence, I said. Jim pulled out the folder. Your Honor, we'd like to enter into evidence photographs, financial records, and audio recordings that support Mr. Kendrick's claims. The judge looked skeptical. Approach. Jim walked to the bench, showed her the contents of the folder. She reviewed them slowly, her expression changing from skeptical to surprised to something else I couldn't read. This is extraordinary, she said quietly. Yes, Your Honor. She looked at Harper's lawyer. Were you aware of these allegations? Your Honor, those documents are clearly falsified or misinterpreted. That's not what I asked. Were you aware your client's mother was allegedly alive? No, Your Honor. The judge looked at Ethan and Harper. Is your mother alive? Neither of them answered. I'll ask again. Is Susan Kendrick alive? Harper stood slowly. Your Honor, I'd like to request a recess to consult with my clients. Request denied. Answer the question. Harper looked at Ethan, then back at the judge. Yes, she said quietly. She's alive. The courtroom erupted.